Hello, thank you so much for watching. I'm Kelsey Matheson. I'm a life coach and a business coach for women, and I'm so excited about this video. This was recorded as the 100th episode of my podcast, Unstoppable Female Entrepreneurs. And in it, I interview my husband, the wonderful, talented, and amazing Scott McCord. And some of you might know him from the television show From, or maybe you've seen him on The Sinner, or you've watched the indie feature film East of Middle West, or maybe you or your kids know him from Paw Patrol or Total Drama Island. But to me, he's my loving husband and an amazing father to our daughter. And in this episode of my podcast, we talk about our journey together as we continue to go after our dreams. And let me tell you, it hasn't always been easy. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Unstoppable Female Entrepreneurs. I am Kelsey Matheson, and this is episode number 100. After this is over, I will have done 100 podcast episodes. Isn't that crazy? That's so crazy. And I have a very special guest with me. This is the first time ever that I've had a dude on Unstoppable Female Entrepreneurs. And not only is he a dude, but he's also my husband.
I'm your favorite dude.
You're my favorite dude.
Yeah.
Scott McCord. Yes. I mean, you are. You're my favorite dude. He is an actor. He's a voice actor. He's a musician. He's an artist. He's a father. And he's my husband. Welcome, Scotty.
Hi, honey. Can I call you honey, or should I?
Yeah.
How do I address you here on your podcast, your amazing podcast? Congratulations, first of all, on 100.
Yay.
Amazing. It's gone fast, hasn't it?
It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's gone fast. It's been pretty cool. And look, although you're not a woman, you are self-employed. You are an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And you live with me, and I'm a woman entrepreneur, and you've been with me and witnessed my whole journey as an entrepreneur for 2 decades now.
Mm-hmm.
But I do want to mention something that some of my clients may call me out on. So a couple weeks ago, maybe even last week, I kept seeing these ads for this Unstoppable Women's Summit. And first of all, I was like, you guys stole my name, kind of. But also it was Tony Robbins that was putting this on. So Tony Robbins and his wife was putting on this Unstoppable Women's Summit. Great. But the thing is in all the ads, Tony Robbins was front and center, and then the women were beside him. And I was like, that kind of annoyed me. I was like, you don't need to be in it. You can still have your brand, Tony Robbins Presents, but why do you need to be in the pictures? You could just have, right? And then I was thinking as I was getting ready for interviewing you, I was like, oh, my productions team is going to want a headshot from Scotty, and in probably all of the advertisements for this particular episode, there's probably going to be a lot of photos of you. And then because I've been telling my clients the story, because there's an end to the story, which I'll get to, but I'm like, right. My clients are going to start calling me out. And the reason why I told the story about me, I was kind of annoyed that Tony was front and center in all these images, and it bugged me. Right. And it kept popping up and popping up and popping up and popping up and popping up. And then the one day it popped up and said, this is the last day to sign up. And I was like, oh shit, I better sign up. I totally signed up. It was free.
Worked. Yeah,
it totally worked. It totally worked. And it was free. And I was talking to my clients about this in the context of, there's one of my clients who has a retreat in Mexico coming up, and another one of my clients is launching a new program. And they were like, we want to promote it and we want to put it out there, but we don't want to be annoying. And I was like, first of all, especially with these two women, I was like, you could never be annoying. Second of all, your audience wants to hear from you, which I think is like, we really need to get that, we need to ingrain that into our head. It's like, your audience wants to hear from you. And then thirdly, if somebody really is annoyed by it, they'll probably just scroll past it. But then with my example, it annoyed the hell out of me and I still signed up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was only an aspect of what the ad that annoyed me. But anyway, here we are. You're my first dude. You're my favorite dude.
I'm honored.
Like,
I'm honored to be here as your first dude on this outstanding podcast, which I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to as a dude, I should say, and also I'm honored to be your favorite dude as
you're
well.
my favorite dude. Yeah.
No.
So, being my favorite dude, let's go back to when we first started dating. And I said to you, I don't know, when this came up and, when we first started dating, but I said to you, one day I'm going to own a home in Costa Rica.
Oh, yes.
I didn't have the money for it. I didn't speak the language. I didn't live in the country. And at that point, I had only visited Costa Rica once. But we first started dating and I was like, I want to go back and do a yoga and surfing retreat, but also one day I'm going to own my own home there. Like, what went through your mind?
You know what, honestly, it's I mean, that we had a pretty phenomenal first date. It was so relaxed. We talk about that a lot, how we were just so ourselves, or we were able to be ourselves with each other. And I think that you sharing that with me, I remember that. And I remember it was impactful because I think I didn't know you, but I believed you. I mean, I knew that, I just, I got that energy from you. I went, this is someone. I mean, I think tying that in with everything else that you were telling me, I could tell you were worldly. You were working in Japan for years. You had told me all these different stories about yourself and your accomplishments. And so, you sort of bring all that in together, and then, this was your next sort of journey, or one of the things that you wanted to do. I mean, a lot of people, they go to nice places and then they go, oh, my God, I'd love to, live there. You hear a lot of people say it. I'd love to build a little house on the beach and do the thing. And with you, there was this feeling of like, she's gonna do it. I think,
Yeah.
I didn't have any, I mean, at least in my memory, that was there. Like, let's say I didn't have any feeling of like, this, it's talking crazy or whatever, this doesn't make any sense,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that's interesting. And I think, something I talk a lot with my clients is you have to believe hard. And I just believed it. I just truly believed, and I told everybody about it. I was like, I'm going to own a home in Costa Rica one day.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I just believed hard. And so then cut to, you and I go on vacation about a year later, and we do a surf retreat in Costa Rica in Tamarindo. You propose, and then a year and a half later, we go back with about 50 of our friends and family members. We get married. And then we go back to Costa Rica. I'm still telling everybody who will hear that eventually I will have a home there one day. We go back. I'm 3 months pregnant with our daughter, and to look at property because we wanted. I was like, we're going to buy land, and we did. We went and we bought a plot of land, and then came back from that trip, and I said, I want to go into business with Jeff. Now, I just want to give everyone a little bit of backstory. So Jeff was the real estate agent I had been back and forth with for, I don't know, a few months prior to us going. And we spent the whole day with him. He showed us a bunch of properties that we liked. But during that epic day, like literally from sun up to sundown, 12 hours we spent with Jeff. And I also found out, because we spent the whole day with him, that he was starting a new business with a couple other people, a wellness business. And we talked at length that day. I think we talked so much about it that I think Scott kind of tuned us out a little. And when we came home from that trip, I was like, I think we're going to invest in this business and start a business with Jeff. What do you think? So what were your thoughts then?
Well, I think it was coming out of that whole kind of, whirlwind weekend that we did, because first of all, Jeff, you and Jeff, yes, had connected. You had told me a bit about, there's this guy. He had contacted you and said, "Hey, listen, now's a good time to come down and look at some properties. I'll show them to you." And I remember I remember a lot of things from that trip. Yes, you were pregnant. I remember us just the whole package that you put together to make this all happen, just to look at property. Literally fell. I think we did it in 3 days or something,
Yeah.
or it was
Yeah, we
something like
flew
that. So
in. We
we
spent
flew
12
in.
hours with Jeff, and then I
Yeah,
think it was literally the next day we flew out.
we flew back out, and
Yeah.
we had made an offer on a property.
Yeah.
So this is what I remember is getting there with you, like just thinking all of this is all new to me, certainly investing in this kind of and energetically in something like this, investing, that you were just like, let's just go to Costa Rica. I just want to take a look at some properties and come out of it. I don't know if I really remember thinking like, oh yeah, we'll come out of it with a property, you know. Um, but it was an exciting adventure to be on with you because you're like the greatest person to do things with. So I was on for the ride. It was just so exciting to be with you and part of and in that energy. Like there's just such I don't know, like it's just it's what my whole marriage has been with you too, which I think is so great in watching you grow as your own artist as well, is that you're always on life's big adventure. Like that's just for you. It's like you love is taking on the new things. It's very, very bold that way, very adventurous. Uh, and so, yeah, we land there. I remember you had rented a small plane, uh, like a Cessna or something that we got into. And I remember you were pregnant with our child. We were flying through these murky clouds and it was raining on the window and the pilot's head was just right in front of me like this. And I could see these little wind wipers going, and we couldn't see anything outside the window. And I kept thinking, oh, we're going to crash in the mountains and we're going to have to survive up here, and we're going to have a child and no one's going to know. I was like, all these things going through my mind. What has Kelsey gotten us into? Anyways, we get through the storm, we land, we get out there, we meet Jeff. And yeah, I remember it's I mean, it was a lot of properties that he packed in for us that day. And he's a good talker. He's very informative. And you guys were just at it that whole time. I remember,
Talking,
then
talking,
we found the
talking,
property that
talking.
we want, talking, and it
Hmm.
was exciting, to be caught up in the whirlwind of all that. And I do remember him talking about, this other business venture. Yeah, I just remember coming out of that. I think, to my memory, I was so excited about the fact that we had made an offer on a property, and I think to my memory, it was we were in bed one night, and you came in and you got in beside me, and we were talking about the property, and then you kind of tacked on this other thing about like, oh yeah, I think I'm going to contact Jeff, and I think I may want to go in on this other business with him, just as I'm rolling over to go, and I'm like this, I'm like, what? And at that point, it was a whole other business idea and model and all that, that you guys were talking about, or that he had sort of presented. But
Yeah, it wasn't Anamaya yet, and what
wasn't
Anamaya
Anamaya,
became.
and
Hmm.
and I remember thinking, oh my God, this is, you know. But I mean, at that point too, you and I were married. We had a baby on the way. I was so getting well versed in my wife's, uh, you know, lifestyle and the story that she was creating for herself. And I was watching you, really carve out this amazing, life for yourself this way. It was very clear that you were just very goal oriented. You loved, you really wanted to build this amazing life for yourself. And then also too, I saw this thing about like, where you saw a need for something, you would go in there as well um, and, uh, and, uh, and embrace that and help and have that sort of help you kind of find your way, for something, which is, what Anamaya eventually became too, right? Out of this other idea, it became something else entirely. Just services people now, people's lives. My own agent's wife went and had her life changed at Anamaya, that was exactly what she needed. And you were aware, your business partners were aware that there was a need for this, for people, and that was served. And so that's another remarkable quality of you as well. So I think by that point, that little scene in bed, it certainly was like, but it was more of one of those like, okay, my wife's gonna, yeah, she wants to do this, she's gonna go do it, and she's gonna be incredibly successful. And it was great, certainly watching that all grow over that next year to when you guys opened, because I was there for that
Yeah.
when you guys opened.
As was Maya,
As was
our
Maya.
daughter.
We had a baby by then. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a really remarkable time, because I guess, yes, the truth is you and I were still very new, because we were married, I guess, within 2 years of being together. Does that seem
Well,
right?
2.5, I think, because you
Two and a
proposed a
half.
year. Yeah, you proposed a year after our first date, and then we were engaged for about a year and a half before we went to Costa Rica and got
Yeah,
married.
right.
So 2.5 years, but still.
But I was very well aware of the fact that you were extremely confident in your ability to um, to get the things that you want, to make the right decisions, to do all those things,
Yeah.
and your
Well, I mean,
opinions.
that's interesting too, because I think, there are times where I feel into that confidence, and then there are times where I feel like
Hmm.
nothing works or nothing is working, or it's like the one step forward, two steps back kind of
Of
thing.
course, of course.
And the struggles and the challenges. So I think, that might be a good place to discuss, is like when you've,
Hmm.
from your perspective, what that whole journey has been like, because you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I
Yeah,
think, I think it's good for anyone who's listening to kind of understand that that's a part of it. It's not just the excitement and the travel and the
yeah,
planes and the properties and the, believing hard, but then it's also the challenges and the tears and the thinking that nothing is working. And so I think that it's important for my audience to hear that, but also I'm curious to hear from a perspective of like my partner too,
hmm,
what that journey's been like for you to witness and be a part of.
yeah. I mean, I've seen, if we want to just go in on the struggle stuff, and I've seen, especially, let's just use NMI as an example, like out of all the businesses that you've had, I mean, there was a great example of, like, I remember very early on, uh, patrons they that arrived, and they, just very, and this is just a very, probably a common thing that a lot of these kinds of businesses run into. They arrived and it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. It's not that it was bad, it's not that it was good, it's just not, for whatever reason, they had something else that they thought it was going to be, and they complained. And I remember you guys, that was the first time that had really happened. I think that might have even been in the first year, and you worked through it. I mean, here again is you, Kelsey Matheson, going into the, I mean, the wellness industry. You're also now a hotelier, or you're doing all these things. I mean, you had a number of jobs. You guys were just a small operation at that point, and you were doing this for the very first time with absolutely no training or experience, right? And
Yep.
you guys, of course, were working together to work through these problems. But I've seen everything from that. So you were just dealing with, clients that,
Mhm.
let's say, were dissatisfied with something, right? You were dealing with that, which was a big deal, and you were in there dealing with that all the way along the line, and through what I watched you and your team do through the pandemic, which of course affected everyone and so many businesses. And to watch again this business, the travel business, the shut down completely, and how you again, though, I saw it. I saw the tears. I saw everything. But I saw you. I've always watched you work through everything with this, again, this boldness and this conviction of, because of what it is that you have set out for yourself to do. And then I think for you, you're very, uh, oh God, you're so much better than me at this. Um, uh, there's a solution. For you, there's always a solution. You're not one that I've always known as somebody to kind of go, okay, well, here I am. I'm up against this first hurdle. You know what? I'm just going to sit back and let these guys deal with it. Or like, I'm not, you're right in the fray, because I know it's just part of your personality too. And I love you so much that it's always about getting in there and figuring it out. There has to be a way. There has to be a way to get, through this thing.
Yeah.
And I suddenly watched you guys going from having absolute, like all the business fell out. I mean, you guys went through, we don't have to go into details, but there were so many things going on at Anamaya during the pandemic. There was loss. There was so much, you guys were all dealing with day to day. And you put together a virtual package at a super reasonable rate for people that just was enough, I think, to keep your staff going or whatever it was. I can't remember what the details were again, but that you did it, and I watched you do it. I was even a part of it, and it was so incredibly successful, and it changed lives, and it did these things for people who were trapped inside. They were able to do a virtual vacation and learn how to cook and do these, whatever it was that you were doing.
Yeah.
I've watched you struggle, but I've watched you persevere, and that's been the most exciting part of all of this. The last several years of watching you go through. I mean, how many businesses that you have had, and then I've seen you. I've seen also the the backpack company, for instance, BPACs. It started as BPACs. Did you guys change the name? It was always
B Outfitter. B Outfitter.
B Outfitter. And how B Outfitter was, and at least from an outsider, in my opinion too, I mean, you guys had, you could talk about this. It was such an amazing organization. You guys were great idea, great designs, constantly creative, always coming up with these new things and these new designs and working hard at this thing. Very, very small business that you guys were startup, just trying to get off the ground. Great feedback. Always working at this thing that you even had on the back end for your sales. You would a large part of your proceeds would end up going to the education system in Africa, correct? Yeah, is that what it was?
Just to certain countries in Africa. We help to provide kids with an education who didn't have access to education.
Yeah, right. And it was, and you maintained that, and you did that, and but I watched that company, you guys struggle, and there was an interesting thing where as good as it was and as amazing as the product was, and I can speak as an actual client of yours because I walked around with your backpacks for years. You eventually made a good sale on the business, but it was just time to do that. And I think that certainly came after I watched that. That was a roller coaster for you guys, for sure.
Yeah.
But again, you persevered, you followed through, and the solution was whatever at that time that you all agreed on. It's just, it's time to sell. It's time to move on.
Yeah,
and
we grew it to a certain point that then it made it valuable to somebody else.
Yeah. But I would say out of all of these things, again, it's this, I don't know, it's just this thing I know about you that, you're just so committed. You dream big dreams, but you really follow through. I mean, I'm living one with you right now here in New York, and as we talk day after day about, it was definitely a big life changer for the two of us.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that because I've mentioned, that you're an actor before on this podcast, and I've mentioned some of the shows that you have been on, and you're currently on strike.
Yes.
And we can't name any of the productions or the shows or anything that you've worked on, which is fine because I really, will want to focus on the entrepreneurship aspect. And you're self-employed as an actor. And although, this is unstoppable, female entrepreneurs, you also have dreamed very big dreams since you were young and have gone after them and have, persevered through your own ups and downs and roller coaster rides and challenges and victories. So, from your perspective, what has that been like for you, knowing from a very young age, really, what you wanted to do and continue to go after that dream? Hey there, I hope you are loving this so far. And if you are, please press the subscribe button. Please give this video a thumbs up. And please let me know in the comments what you are loving so far. What is resonating with you? What are your biggest takeaways? Let me know.
It's I feel very grateful, of course, and lucky uh, to be doing the very thing that I've been thinking about and dreaming about since I was young. I mean, that's the thing I have to keep bringing myself back to, day after day
Mm-hmm.
after day. I go off and walk out here in beautiful Prospect Park where we live by. And we were just in there this morning together talking about some of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there has never been a point where I've wanted to give up, where I've gone, I got to put this down. I've had many shifts. You've seen them throughout my career too, right? Like there was a point where I stopped acting for a little bit, at least on stage and film, and I just did voice work, for instance, and then went off
Yeah.
and did music. And I was just, for other reasons, but came back when the time was right. And then you and I were, like we started talking about New York and getting ourselves here because we wanted to uh, ride the giant waves, I guess, so to speak, and we put ourselves out there. When I say that, I mean, using that as an expression, I mean to really challenge ourselves, to push ourselves out past where we were, purely for the sake of growth, right? You would agree with
Yeah.
that, right? You and I talk about
Mm-hmm.
that a lot because that's something I know you and I both also come back to, right? Is that there are
Mm-hmm.
those moments where we look at our bank account or we go through a strike or it was COVID or it was whatever it is, or just going through phases where both our businesses, right, just for whatever
Yeah.
reason are fluctuating and we go, oh, it's that thing. You're much better at this than I am, but I mean, I have the benefit of being, and it's the best part about being married to you is I get all this wonderful free advice. Um, I'll boast about that out here on your podcast. But you have given me, I mean, endless gold, right? Every day you do, even this recent one that you gave me where, you just came out and reminded, you said, where focus goes, energy flows. Because you could tell by the way I was talking and going, and that all that it was just I was onto the wrong things, the perspective, the energy, everything about it was that's where everything was going. And you were like, whoa, 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 look at, yeah, you can go down that path, or we can, reset it over here. You can look at these things to focus on. Another remarkable quality of yours as well, that even in its darkest, dankest, you know, days, when everything just feels like it's crushing you, and you feel like railing at the gods, or um, uh, that you have this great way of coming in and shifting that perspective as well, always, right? And I think I was even walking in the park recently, at the beginning of the strike, worried about money, trying to think ahead. Of course, all of it, we just live in such uncertain times for all of us in our work and our businesses and our dreams, and just going, I was just having one of those days and I put on one of your podcasts and I remember I left you a little voice message
Mm-hmm.
immediately afterwards and said, thank you so much for episode number 89 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
because I said, it lifted me out of it. But again, it also just sort of, and this is what your work is so great at, Kelsey, is it just sort of got me back on this path of, it's almost like snapping you out of this, again, this story or this thing or this victimization that we can do often, right? I'm, as my wife, how I'm good at victim and, why?
Yeah.
And,
We can all
I'm an
relate
actor.
to that. We can
Yeah,
all
we can all
relate.
relate to that. But I think it's such amazing work that you do, my love, with everybody. And it has had such an effect on me. And my summer of being in this has only been wonderfully enhanced and lit by what you've offered because because just that alone, energy flows where focus goes. It just snapped me right. I just realized, oh my God, I'm putting everything into all this energy into just that, into just walking around and dying each day and going like, oh, it's over, it's this or it's whatever, and I can't do this, and just all the negative things that I was allowing myself to be pulled along by, and recognizing that I'm comfortable in that place.
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, your brain's comfortable in that because
Yeah.
um, because it's safe just to complain, right? In order to
And
get out of the funk, you might have to do something outside your comfort zone, and that's terrifying for our
that's
brains.
terrifying. And isn't it funny that I remember I came back to you and I said I just had this day, uh, and then we talked about it, and I think following that I shifted everything. I just got up the next day and started being creative, and I got back to
Hmm.
all the things that I could be working on, which is investing in my business in different ways.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing, right? All of a sudden, I was super creative. All of a sudden, the play I'm writing. All of a sudden, I write 26 pages come out, right away. All of a sudden, I'm on a phone call about a certain project, maybe that something a reading comes through. All of a sudden, I open myself up to back to this positive thinking and growth, and also just recognizing that there isn't that much to complain about. That, oh my
Hmm.
God, just in life that the fact that we are living our dream, uh, acknowledging that we're always walking the edge. I mean, to get back to your question, about that thing of with hardships, I think that for any of us doing our own thing, that just accepting that that's just part of it. We're always going to be kind of wobbling along that edge a little bit, and then
Well, and I think if we have to, if we want to grow, then that is what is required of us. I mean, like
yeah,
I think some people could look at our life back in Toronto, and we had a gorgeous home in a very desirable neighborhood and doing
yeah.
very well financially. And we sold the house and moved to New York, and for a big chunk of the time that we've been here, we're broke. I
It's
mean,
been that way. Yeah,
ish. And again, a lot of that had to do with COVID. A lot of that
yeah.
there's a lot of factors there in terms of, how our finances shifted. But I think there's a lot of people who would think that we were batshit crazy for doing that, and thinking that, we just, we left such a comfortable life. And it's true, our life there was amazing and fantastic, but
Yeah.
we wanted something more. We wanted to grow as individuals, as artists, as business owners, um, as human beings. We wanted that growth, and that we knew we wouldn't be able to continue to grow the way that we wanted to there, back in Toronto necessarily. So um, walking that line and putting ourselves out, stepping outside that comfort zone regularly is a part of that growth. And it's also really scary. And our brains a lot of time just want to fall back into that victim mode of like, oh, why is this always happening to me? Why can't I do anything right? Why, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not this enough. I'm not that enough. Or just the like, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this,
To
kind of
deserve all of
narrative?
that place.
Yeah.
Yeah. But going back, I can't remember the name of the chef that I was listening to. Famous chef who was talking about the same thing. The highs and the lows, and his line about growth was, that's where it really exists. It truly exists, is going out and walking that edge. There's no other place for him.
Yeah. Hmm.
Is to go out there and put himself out there and take those risks, every risk possible, because beyond anything, financial, I mean, again, these things that we don't have control over. I like to believe too that the one thing we do have control over is our growth.
Hmm.
We just have to keep thrusting ourselves out there.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting because I remember, when we started talking about, moving to New York, and
Yeah.
we would have Friday afternoon New York meetings.
Oh God, yeah, I remember.
And
Yeah.
every time it would end in a fight.
That's right. That's right. Well,
Every
but I
time.
even remember before that, which is so funny, is we would sit down and that was a nice couch we had in that house too. You remember?
Yeah, I
You
know. It's
love your
beautiful. I love
couch.
that couch.
It was a beautiful couch.
We
We
couldn't
would
bring it
sit
to New
there.
York. It was too big.
It's just too big. It wouldn't have
Oh.
fit anywhere. But I remember sitting down across from you. We had those little books. We had our little books, and we
Yeah,
were
we had a
writing
little
our things down. And
notepad and
I think we were working with individually with a coach, and also together with a coach to get ourselves transitioning. And I just remember the energy of the two of us sitting down. I mean, it was just all the fear. Like we would
it was
just
all
sit down
fear.
there. It was all
100%.
fear, but and legitimately so, because again, it was all talk about uncertainty. We had no idea, and we even had all
Hmm.
these people working with us and friends here in New York helping us and ushering us in. And oh yeah, I remember those meetings. Yeah, and then we would argue. I know. I was so convinced, I think, in a way that you didn't want to do it. I think I remember, uh, but we did it. We laid everything out. You even got us everything. You even had vision boards. I remember.
Hmm.
Maya and you and I, we still have them. We did
Yeah.
the vision boards. We came and brought here Maya to New York to introduce her to the city and got ourselves in here. We came and visited Mark. Like we got on it and started making that stuff
Hmm.
happen. And and a real moment of success, I think, and not just in my life, I think for both of us. We talked about it often, actually, you and I, is being there at our house with our friends in Costa Rica, in our beautiful home just outside of
Hmm.
Montezuma. And we were there on vacation, and we got the news that we had been approved for our green cards.
Yeah.
I was on an ATV on the way to Kobano, and
Yeah. And I was
I
sick as a
called
dog
you,
in
and
bed.
you were sick as a dog in bed.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I remember that being another moment because I realized our life was changing. And again, it was this scary thing and it was uncertain, but there was just this, again, like we got there, we did it,
Hmm.
we stuck to it, we fought, we got, but we just were very clear on those vision boards and what it was that we wanted.
Yeah.
And 7 years, what have we moved 5 times now? Is that right?
Hmm.
5 times.
5 times within those 7 years. Yeah. Again, something that
You
we
know?
couldn't have, you know,
No.
predicted. Again, there's only certain things that we have control over, but we had control over continuing to move forward to work towards getting our green cards and working towards moving here. Um, and I talk a lot about those, those Friday afternoon New York meetings because they did, for the most part, end in arguments. And it was just fear. It was clearly both of us. It
Yeah,
was just fear, and it was scary. It was scary.
it was. Don't scare me,
But
yeah.
then I remember my coach asking me to, like, well, if this was a goal that you were going to set for your business, how would you go about it? And I was like, oh, well, I would go da 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 da. I would do this and this and this
Yeah,
and this. And she's like, okay, well, bring that to the table with Scott and go about this goal as you would
yeah,
any business goal. And I was like, oh. And then all of a sudden, it did streamline things. Not that we didn't continue to argue here or there, but I think it lessened the fear because it gave us some strategy. And I think that also is super helpful, is when you have, number one, some strategy, and then you can kind of again, where energy, or where focus goes, energy
hmm
flows. So we were focused on
hmm
the strategy and like all of the steps and in what order, and we would chunk everything down into like, well, this doesn't make much sense to do this month, but what we could do is this and this and this. And then, so anyway, we had some strategy in place and set some mini goals within the big goal that helped to alleviate some of the fear and the stress. Having help, getting help, right? Surrounding yourself with people who been there, done it, understand it. That was super helpful. I mean, that's the whole reason why I have my mastermind, is so that, you don't feel like you're all alone in these decisions and in this growth and in, working towards your goals, that you're surrounded by people who understand, who get it and can bring you into a community where you feel supported and guided, because it is scary. What would you say has been some of your, what would you say have been your biggest lessons um, through this whole,
Journey.
adventure of yours, journey? Yeah.
Well, a big one, you and I talk so much about it, Kelsey, is I mean, my God, the stories that we tell ourselves, you know,
Mm.
the ones again that take us into that comfortable place of, uh, and they're bullshit stories, essentially, right? They're,
Yeah. Narratives that
and
don't serve.
at all, at all. They've done nothing, um, uh, again, where the focus goes, the energy flows every time, and you've seen it too. Every time that I've focused myself and gone, I'm going to connect with this person to get this thing to do the whatever and blah blah blah. All my successes here were just because that focus went in there and that energy was there. And one of the lessons again was just that it's that I've learned from you, that it's just, stay the course, you feel the magic within you, it's your thing. You wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have got this far, you know, uh, and, and just to keep, to just keep going, uh, I can't imagine life being any other way, I mean, look, I have the benefit of having the greatest partner in the world here. You are my best friend, a wondrous, amazing wife and mother. And I got to say, the teamwork, that's been another great lesson too in collaboration, right? Is that, we're, we're business partners, I guess, in essence, in certain ways, right? Whether that's going into, an adventure like New York together, buying a house in Costa Rica together, however, you want to frame it. Uh, I can't say that, you know, uh, to go back to that first date again, that any of these parts of my life would be a reality without you in them. I mean, you've been such an incredible supporter as well, and as well as an influence. But I think that, what are the big takeaways? Yeah, you talked a lot about this too. You dream big dreams, and then you go get them.
Yeah.
And I think with that being said, were there times when and are there still times when the ego gets in the way? Yes, of course, but I think I can handle it a little bit better now. And some days, other days, not so much.
Yeah. I mean, look,
But
we're still human, right?
yeah, and you know, but it's all there. And, of course, there's so much fear sometimes with just the very fact that we wake up some days and how much we realize we're in control of it, so much of it. That's scary. That it doesn't make me want to pick up that ball and run with it. But again, every time I've done it, it's proven to be nothing but beneficial. You know, dare I say, I've even surprised myself a few times. We all do, right? Uh,
Yeah.
I remember I have great memories of being here, and you were starting at one point. You were, yeah, on top of everything else that you were doing, you were starting to get trainings and webinars. I remember this is one of the things I remember we first got to New York. Do you remember that? Of course, you remember this. And this was just another aspect of your career for another business that you were trying to do. And I remember you were starting to do those, and there were times, I remember you would finish and I could hear you right at the very end of the hour of the live webinar. I'd hear you finish and go, thanks everybody for this, and we'll talk to you soon. And you'd get off and I'd hear you go, you know, and and that exertion, that moment, that release, that pressure of air that came out of you wasn't frustration or defeat or anything like that. I could tell that it was just everything that you were putting into, what it is that you're trying to get, essentially, running as hard as you can with that ball to this thing. I was always amazed, and still am amazed at all of that. Uh, but all that work that I've seen you do, and now, like I said, if it all culminates into this moment where I can walk in a park on my shittiest day this summer and listen to the voice of my wife, I've heard you. You've done a lot of work with people, amazing work with people, and I hear you working. You and I have had many discussions, of course, about this stuff. But the very fact that I could listen to a 20-minute podcast of yours that completely shifted me onto a new path. Bless you. Thank you for that. And that there's another big takeaway from all of this is listen to your wife.
Well, that actually segues nicely into something else I was going to talk to you about. That's very
Yeah.
funny because you have also been a huge supporter of mine and believed sometimes even harder than me than
Mm.
I've, believed, in myself. Um, I think that's super important in
Yeah.
partnership. And so, you know, if so yeah, so I, like, my one of my mottos is dream great dreams, then make them come true. And then even on
Yeah.
my AirPod case, I have, like,
Oh
it
yeah.
says dream big,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's always been my motto, but I think easy for me to say, but I also luckily have I'm blessed with a partner who has the same beliefs. You have the same values in that regard. So, um, you know, what would you say to, let's say, all my wellness entrepreneurs, all my, women entrepreneurs out there listening, and entrepreneurial dudes too, because, like, even, like you said, you listen to my podcast.
Yeah.
But anyone who's out there, who's an entrepreneur, who's self-employed, who's working their butt off to build their business, what would you say to their partner in terms of how they could be supportive?
Wow, that's a great question. Yeah. Um, well, I think I mean, the answer is right there in the question, is just be supportive.
Mm,
Be supportive in ways that, get to them before they get to themselves. You know what I mean? Because sometimes I've never worried, listen, I'll be honest, I've never worried about you giving up. You're not that personality. You know what I mean? I never felt like I had to come in and go, whoa, 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 and so, listen, have there been times that you've come to me in this thing and gone like, hey, I think I want to do this. And I've gone, okay, more so not because I don't think you can't do it. You can do anything. It had more to do maybe with just, my only concern with you, which, I guess this is good to bring up in this context is you doing too much. I know you and
yeah.
I have had many discussions about, the potency that you want to bring to one thing. And that sometimes when it's an arguable point, but that, because I know that's just also your personality and the way that you like to work too. And you do an amazing job of it, that you can be a mom and do the thing and do this, but, and then I watch you heap something else on your plate. You're like, I'm going to do this. And then I go, okay, can you do? And you end up doing it. Um, I think that therein lies that it's just, yeah, be supportive. My God, it's their dreams. You know. I mean, look, have there been certain decisions along the way or things that I've heard you saying? And I mean, I don't think I've really listen. I've never come in and said you can't do this and said no or whatever.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever
Um,
said that to you either.
no, you've always been, oh my God, are you kidding me? I mean, look, my first year here in New York of just my, wanting to get into the actors studio, you were so
Hmm.
incredibly supportive while I did that journey. And that took me away from home a lot. I was there as a finalist doing the auditions. I was getting coached personally. And then I was in another class outside of the studio, just gearing up towards my final audition for that place.
Hmm.
It really was taking up a lot of my energy and time and focus and whatever. As much as I was trying to still give us, our family life and do our thing or whatever, you were nothing and have been nothing but supportive in that whole journey alone, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, because I think what it is that it's also it's not just even recognizing, the person's dreams, which is enough.
Mm.
I feel and see, this is to go back to the first date thing again with you, and for anyone that's watching, listening, and with their partners too, that magic, that thing that you can sense in them as well. I've had nothing but faith in you in terms of your capabilities and I'm still watching you grow and going, oh my, what's next for Kelsey Matheson? Like, what's she gonna, where's this all gonna go? It's thrilling, you know. And selfishly, I get to be on the ride of that in the sense that to get back to the life's big adventure, that's all there. I mean, there's just I don't know. Consider the alternative. Shut it all down. Tell the person they can't do it. Move on. I I I don't see how that benefits anything really. Just from my end of things. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I wouldn't have certainly. I've never felt like I've had to do that again with you in any case. I can imagine that would be pretty soul crushing in some instances for people, to have their partner come in and go, you know. this isn't serving us in the, this way financially or whatever, or this or that. I would, it's just, I see your greater purpose. I see these things that you're doing, that I know that no matter where we are in the ebb and flow of everything, supporting that is just part of what, I believe in doing with you, but just because it's just part of this journey that we're on and that we're continuing to do. Uh, and of course, everybody needs that support. My God, I mean, how many times either I've come to you, you know, and
Mm.
God, should I do this? Is it time for me to make this shift here? Or should I, you
Yeah,
know,
I think it's, I think being invested in each other's journey, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, I
mm,
think is just so important. Being invested
hmm
in each other's growth, I think is
yeah,
important. And I think, and you said something interesting too. It's like, and calling each other out on, lovingly,
yeah,
in an area where you might be concerned. I think that's also fair. Like, you were like, do you actually have the capacity to put something else on your
yeah,
plate?
sure. That was an
And I'd be like,
example.
well,
Yeah.
let me think about that. Maybe I don't. Maybe you're right. Cause, I do have a tendency just to be like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And it's
hmm
like, but are we at
hmm
risk here of you burning yourself out? Um, and look, and the other thing too is, it's like, when finances come into the play, because like, look, when people build their business and they start their business,
Yeah.
typically they're not going to be financially free, for a while. It takes a while for you to get your business to the point where you are, generating predictable and, sustainable income in your business. And
hmm
again, that's why I have the programs I have. That's why I do the coaching I do, to kind of help you along that path and maybe shorten the journey slightly. But, um, one of the myths I think about entrepreneurship is like, I'm going to start my business and I'm going to make a lot of money right away. I'm not saying that that can't happen, but it's very rare when I do see that happen. So, in terms of finances, it's like, you know, if a partner was like, I'm concerned, about the financial
Yeah.
situation here, then I
Yeah.
think that that's a conversation to have. Um, that and still be invested and believe in what they want to do. Like, maybe there's you and I have actually been talking about that when you've been on strike,
Yeah.
or, like, what does other options look like here, and continue to support each other, and be invested in each other's dreams and goals. So I think that
Totally.
word support, I think, is important, and, and being invested in the other person's journey.
I love you, and it's there. You came, like, even when we were coming out of, when we were still in the midst of the pandemic, and you came to me about wanting to get your certification,
Mm-mm.
you know, and that cost money
Mm-hmm.
at that time. That I just remember there not really being any question. Like, I was like, no, no, she needs this. I recognize that need. I could feel it in you. You know. Uh, Yeah, we could have not done it, and it was just, but there's something that's vital about it in these
Mm-mm.
dreams. There's something that's vital about it in this life, and we're doing. And I think that to me is, if I was going to brag about us as as a couple, is I feel
It's the
like,
100th episode. We can brag all we want.
well, it's like, either like, you know um, we're totally making bad choices all the time
Yeah.
for ourselves, but I don't think that is the case. I think it's, obviously, we're just really supportive of each other's journey, and also as partners, like you said, recognizing that it's that there's a greater journey within that,
Mm-hmm.
together, just in growing together as a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, there was something even recently that you did. I came to you with one of my moments, and uh, and it's that kind of a thing where it's like, where was I going with that? Yeah, you got me. You made me realize that I already knew what it was that I had to do. You know what I mean? But I had to come to you,
But
and
the
I had to
answer was
come to you and
already
have that
there.
moment. Yeah, like I'm sure that's it's a very common thing as well, right? But in
Hmm.
the partnership, it was so essential because I just couldn't see it, or for whatever reason, I clouded myself with the story and all this other thing. And I came to you, and all of a sudden, you were like, "Well, no, you know,
Yeah. What you
you know
needed.
what you have to do here."
Yeah. And what you needed was all like the answer was already within you.
Yeah, yeah, um, uh,
That's the other thing too. I
you,
think sometimes with, in good partnership, whether it's a partnership in relationship or partnership within like community, that, you know, that, that people who do support you and people who are invested in your own growth and your own, and your success will help you to mine those
hmm
thoughts, right? So, or those decisions, or, whatever it is that you need, it's already within you. And
yeah,
sometimes we just can't see it, and we need other like coaches, or our partners or friends or whoever that is, to help uncover that, so that you're like, oh yes, okay, this makes sense, and it was already all there. I just needed some support and guidance in finding that and uncovering that, shedding some light on that.
right,
Yeah.
totally,
Amazing.
yeah.
So, so what's next? I mean, you're on strike. We're heading into the fall.
Yeah, we're going to the
Our
fall.
daughter is starting high school.
Yep.
And yeah, we're heading into the fall. I'm continuing to grow my coaching practice. Anamaya is continuing to host week-long retreats and YTTs. You can get your yoga certification at Anamaya. We don't know when you're going back to work, but every day
No,
you continue to focus on something towards your growth.
have to. Yeah,
Um, mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Again, it's just
yeah,
vital
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So, I mean, thank you for being a part of my 100th episode and my first dude, my favorite dude
The
on
first
this.
dude, and just well, and thank you for all this and inviting me in, and also for just for all for all the great gifts that you've given with all of this, Kels. It's so funny. We're doing this podcast, and I think I'm sitting 20 feet away from you right
Yeah.
now. Uh, another really extraordinary thing that came out of listening to that podcast that day was that recognition of your partner, to kind of tie all this in, where it's like you see and hear and feel all of the journey and the work and the pain and the struggle and the growth and everything all come into maybe just one of these. All of a sudden, I realized in this moment, I left you that message, and I wish I could remember
Hmm.
what it was that I said, but I was just gushing because I was so proud of you in that moment, just in terms of where all of this has come to,
Hmm.
even just from that first date that we met. It doesn't include the whole journey you've had, prior to when we met, in
Hmm.
the years that I've known you, to watch all of this, and to arrive at that moment. And that's just one moment now of, now we're on to the next,
Hmm.
and here in this 100th episode, you now have 100 episodes of your podcast. I remember
Yeah.
2 years ago when you were like, "We're gonna have a podcast," and I thought, "Oh God,
Yeah.
another thing to put on the
Another
plate."
thing you're
Okay,
going to put on our plate.
here we go.
Yeah.
And yet,
Yeah.
of course, I wanted you to do it, and you've done it, and it's a wonderful podcast. That here we are, 100th episode.
100th
Congratulations.
episode. And you know what? You just said something that made me think of something else in terms of celebration. We don't
Hmm.
celebrate ourselves
Hmm.
enough. I think it's easier to celebrate, our partners. Like I love celebrating you.
Oh yeah,
I love being a part of your
you're
journey. And
so good at that. Yeah,
well, and it's
yeah.
exciting. Like, you were starting to get recognized on the street. People are coming up
Hmm.
and getting your autograph or getting selfies. And like that,
Hmm.
I got to be kind of indirectly a part of that experience for you. That was super cool for me. Like you were just talking about being a part of my experience and how it's been
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
cool
yeah,
for you.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That for you was super cool for me. But I think, it's about celebrating your partner and celebrating yourself, and I think that you and I have had this conversation before too, or many conversations where I'm like, okay, but
Yeah.
let's look at everything that we can celebrate. Let's train our brain to find the things that are working. Let's train our brain to find the things that we're grateful for, or we're happy about, or, what if the opposite were true? Because there's certain
Yeah.
times where we're like, what does the universe have against us? Or like,
Yeah.
what is the
Yeah.
lesson the universe is trying to provide for us here? I'm like, well, there could be a lesson, but also what if within this situation, the universe does have our back
Yes.
and we're looking at it from the wrong perspective, right? So I
Yeah.
think, so anyway, that goes back to those celebrating. We don't celebrate enough. I don't think we celebrate ourselves enough. I think that especially for women, that feels weird and awkward to celebrate ourselves. We think that it has to do with like,
Right.
being arrogant or full of ourselves or something, which I think, that's a whole other podcast episode. But it's about being proud of us and proud of what we've accomplished up until this point, and proud that we continue to move forward, that we continue to pursue our dreams, that we continue to put ourselves out there, and that we
Yeah.
continue to do hard things and walk that line that you were talking about in order to continue that journey of growth. It's not easy.
Well, it's not at all, and it continues to not be easy, but it's just I think for me the big one is just accepting that that's what it is. You and I have been talking about this now for this whole summer. That
Yeah.
it's this is the life in a way, and not that's a bad like not in a bad way, but just accepting that this is it's just always gonna it is that line that we're on. Uh, Resistance hasn't done anything for me in this the last how many years of doing this hasn't served me at all. I can't
Mhm.
I can't get around it. The reality is that nobody would have seen the strike was coming, and then I was supposed to be back at work,
Yeah, you're
and
supposed
it
to
all
be back at work right now.
yeah it was, and it's got, I mean, listen, I'm in solidarity. I mean, this has to happen. It's
Yeah.
great with everything that's happening, and importance globally. It's having its
Yeah.
effect and whatever
It
else.
needs to happen.
So again, it just comes back to that thing of what's and it's also vital, and it's also part of this journey. So I think that you know then getting ourselves out of that mindset too of like, it's so funny that like um uh because you know how extreme I am with everything.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm always convinced that it's like we're gonna get, it's gonna get so bad. I'm never gonna work again. I'm gonna get thrown out the door onto the street. We're gonna be living out in this. It's like we're gonna be in poverty, and it's not gonna happen. You know, um, uh, and I think that that's just so important to remind myself that sometimes taking myself that far in terms of the story of what the where all of this can basically go is
Hmm.
no, it's just me, just I guess essentially just being dramatic. Scary that
Well,
that's a comfortable
yeah.
place for me,
Well, but
but
that's also, it makes sense being an actor.
yeah, the feast famine thing. Yeah, but you know what? I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. I know you feel the same way about what you're doing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's and that thing of like, there could always be more. We always tell ourselves that, like, oh,
Hmm.
there could always be more money. There could always be more this. There could always be more. I don't know. I mean, out in the park today, both of us living our dream in the city that we want to be in. We've been here. We
Hmm.
just celebrated our 7th anniversary here.
7th
Um,
anniversary of moving here. Yeah.
yeah, walk in the park with our friends the other day. I wouldn't have it any other way. And then
Hmm.
you and I both get to come home and do the things that we want to do with our lives.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the other thing too, is we've really we've established such a great community here. I mean, you have an amazing
Mhm.
community with the
I love my people. Yeah.
people that you met through the actor studio.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then that's continued to grow as well. You're meeting all these
Hmm.
very cool people, and
Hmm.
and then the community of friends that we have. I was talking about them, I don't know, several episodes ago. I think I was just talking about community, but like, um, there's like the 4 couples, kind of our crew that has become like our
Oh yeah,
main
yes,
kind of
yeah,
crew, right?
yeah,
Um, which has been awesome. And then through them, we've met even more people. And we already had some people who lived here, when we first landed here, and they've,
yeah.
continued to support us, and we've grown, in our relationship with them as well, which has been great. But like community is so important on this journey because it can feel lonely. As entrepreneurs, it can feel lonely. As to us as a little family pursuing our dreams, that can feel lonely because, again, I think
Yeah,
a lot of people thought that we were batshit crazy for doing what we were doing. So
yeah.
feeling like you're the outsider, or you're doing something wrong, or you're doing something that people are like, kind of looking at you sideways for, that can feel lonely. So, again, I think surrounding yourself with community, surrounding yourself with people who get it, surround yourself with people who support you and are invested in your success. So key.
I
So
would
key.
actually agree with 100%. I think that's actually, if I could go back when you had the question about what are the learning lessons, that was
Mm,
something that was given to me by a coach when you and I were having those meetings, the New York meetings. And one of the things that they said is, so here are the things, we had them as sort of post-it notes or something, like here are the things you're going to focus on when you get to New York. And one of them that they kept stressing with me is community. And I was never really focused on that and talking about that at first.
right.
I was thinking, oh yeah, no, community. Yeah, 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 community. And I don't know why that was. I think I was just more focused on career and this and that and the other things. And even though community has to do with all of those things, I just wasn't putting the energy into that. And I remember until I got into the studio, other than a couple of friends that we had here,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was, I realized, after a few months and we got our daughter in school and everything. And I remember you and I walking through Park Slope one day and going, I think we have to start
Yeah.
reaching out to people more,
Yeah.
and we made great friends. I mean, right across the street, of course, then
Yeah.
we're still our friends today. And,
Yeah.
but I
Some of our
remember
best friends now.
not putting the energy into that. And I would think that because I think, like you said, it's the realization that it actually has to do with everything else that you're doing. It's
Yeah.
so vital. It's so another vital piece
Yeah.
of growing, I think,
Yeah. 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 Who you surround yourself with. And again, that's why my mastermind is one of the reasons I created my mastermind, is because, when
Hmm.
I first started as well, I didn't really have that. I didn't
Yeah.
have other entrepreneurs in my life,
So that was one of the big reasons you wanted to
yeah,
start
to
the
do the
mastermind. Yeah.
mastermind.
Yeah.
Number
Yeah.
one was because it's hard. Right?
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
hard. You do
Yeah. Yeah.
feel like it's lonely. I was
Yeah.
talking about this, actually. I did an interview with one of my clients on Instagram, and one of my other clients was watching it, and she commented, and
Hmm.
Jillian and I were chatting. She's a member of the mastermind, and she was talking to about the mastermind and how beneficial it's been for her. And then one of my other clients, Dr. Brooke, she's a one-on-one client of mine, but
Yeah.
she also is in the mastermind. She
Yeah.
commented going, it feels so lonely. Right.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it
Right.
does, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
this as a solo entrepreneur, it feels
Yeah.
really lonely because you do have to constantly be stepping outside of the comfort zone. So it feels scary, and it feels like you're
Yeah.
taking risks, and it feels like you're kind of like stepping out there without a safety net.
You're vulnerable.
So,
Yeah.
so
Sure.
often, and you're vulnerable that so for
Hmm.
me, it was like, we need community where you can come, feel supported. Women get it. They're working towards similar goals. They might be, a few steps ahead of you, and then they can contribute and kind of like help to
Yeah.
tow you along. Or, just those days when you're feeling like, oh, you're in the narrative of like, I suck.
Yeah.
and the other
Yeah.
women totally get it. Right. And
Yeah.
can hold
Yeah.
space for
Yeah.
you to be there and process that, but also come
Yep.
out on the other side. And you most likely would come out on the other side a lot
Yeah.
sooner if you didn't
Yeah.
have that community, and that support of those like-minded women. And they've been networking.
Yeah.
Like one of the women held a retreat in Italy, and one of my other uh, clients who is
So
in the
great.
mastermind, she attended. And I've
Yeah.
had A couple other women collaborate on like, so then all of a sudden then it creates this really supportive network. A few of them are accountability buddies and things like that. So I think it's
I
community
can
is
hear it through the
important.
door. So I can hear you working like I can hear it. And I can hear sometimes as he silences, because I know you're just, you're plugged in, you guys are all tuned in talking. And then all of a sudden I'll hear you go, yay! Like I hear it
Yeah.
more often than not, like, you get, but that's support of, that you're giving each other.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah.
again,
Cause you
vital,
can't hear
right?
them
So
because they're
important.
in my headset, but you can
Of
hear
course.
me sometimes.
Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you
That's
this,
funny.
like, this is your podcast, but because it's your 100th episode, we're just sitting here and listening to you talk about the network, the importance of all of this. Let me ask you, now that you have, your network that that you've become a part of, that you build, that you've contributed to, and you're on your hunt. How does it feel now, having arrived here in New York? 7 years have gone by. You've been building all of this to this point, and you're arriving at your 100th episode of your podcast. You're a
Hmm.
certified coach. Again, multi-business owner,
Hmm.
mom, super wife, all the things.
Yeah.
Uh, how does it feel?
Sometimes it feels um surreal.
Surreal.
Yeah, because I think I it's surreal because if
Yeah.
I really sit and think about it, it's amazing how much I have, I think,
Right.
created in my
Yeah.
life and
Yeah.
manifested
Yeah.
in my life, and I don't take enough time to really look at it from that perspective because of course I'm so goal oriented and I'm wanting to grow and I'm wanting to help more people and I'm wanting to serve at the highest level. So I'm, I'm
You're not seeing it for how great it really is.
yeah,
That's what
I
you're
don't
saying.
do it enough. And there are,
Doing
so
enough.
for you to say that and then I go, and I just take that in.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh my God, look at what I've created for myself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Look at how many
Yeah.
people I've helped.
It's
Right.
un
And
it's unbelievable. I try to tell you that sometimes
yeah,
because
you
I
do.
can I read their response, I see them, like,
Yeah.
or hear them, sometimes, and I know that your feedback has been outstanding, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'm not sure how it lands with you,
I know it's true.
Must be
I
true.
think for women too, I think it's hard for sometimes, and I know with some of my
Yeah.
clients, and they know who they are. It's so hard for them to hear that positive feedback and how much people like when people say that Anamaya has
Yeah.
changed their life,
Yeah.
that lands with me
Yeah.
because it feels a little bit separate. It's me,
Yeah.
it's my two business
Right.
partners, it's
Right.
our 35 staff, and we all have created this amazing magical place that literally can transform people's lives in 7 days,
Yeah.
literally at a cellular level. That
Hmm.
I feel so confident in and so proud of, but it doesn't feel like it feels separate. It feels bigger than me,
It's
right?
different
But
than
when,
what your
excuse me,
own. Yeah.
yeah, because when I think about me and my own coaching practice and what I've created, or even,
Right.
everything you just said, 100th episode, I have 3 programs, coaching these women, helping these women, landing here in New York City.
Yeah.
And then I go, oh, wow, like, look at everything I've created. Look at what I've manifested. It does. It feels a little surreal. And then you
Yeah.
hear these really, my clients will give me these beautiful raving testimonials. And I'm like, oh,
Flowing.
and
Yeah.
sometimes it'll even make me a little teary. And like, I feel so good. But I think we have to practice allowing it to land, allowing it to
Really.
take,
Yeah.
like, to really,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
absorb what, these people are saying. And a
Yeah.
lot, and then those of you who are listening who are like, oh, I don't really know how to post testimonials without making it look like,
Hmm.
I'm trying to brag or,
Hmm.
whatever. Like they have this negative energy. There's this negative energy attached to sharing a testimonial that is
Right.
so amazing because they think it will look bad.
Hmm.
Isn't that so crazy and counterintuitive? It's like, no, they're singing your praises. This person is singing your praises And and then you think, but by putting that out there, it's going to make you look bad. Like it's so weird how our brain tries to keep us safe. It's so strange.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think it is important for us to really take in those testimonials. I have my clients usually create a document. So every time somebody says how much, they love working with you, or how much you've helped them, or whatever that is, or given you
Mhm.
like a formal video or written testimonial, like there's a document or there's a file, and you keep them all. And there have been times where if I'm feeling a little like, oh my gosh, it's feeling like a real, it's feeling like a real challenge right now. I have that document that I can go to, or that folder of all these testimonials, and look at all of the women that I've helped and how they felt at the time that they shared this testimonial or shared these kind words, how I changed their life in certain ways. That's so important. And it's hard for us. It's so hard for us to take in. But I think it's important. And so, yeah, it's surreal. It's exciting. If you would have told me like 7 years ago that this is where we'd be,
Yeah.
it would be, or even on our first date. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Right.
Have owned multiple businesses,
Yeah.
living in New York,
Yeah.
all the things that we both have accomplished.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes
Surreal.
it feels surreal,
Feels a
but
little surreal. Yeah.
it is very real, and it feels really freaking amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you can I do this too, like I feel like I can get hung up in a moment, or on a particular job or a thing that I think kind of not only defines all
Mm,
of it, it just defines who I am, you know? My therapist the other day was just like, snapped me back in by saying that to me. It's like, and nor does it define who you are, this
yeah.
particular moment. Like, but yet, when you step back and you just look at the life and the body of work and the body of accomplishments, you know what I mean? Like, there's such gratification in that, because you
Yeah.
go, oh yeah, look back 7 years ago, just to that, just to getting to New York,
Hmm.
that alone, uh, yeah, it's a pretty remarkable, and yeah, I think I get that. It can be a little surreal. I mean, I still have
Yeah.
moments here where we're walking outside, and I say that sometimes we're out walking our dogs some nights, and I go, honey, we're here in Brooklyn. We live
Yeah.
here. That's 7 years later, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I also do that with a lot of pride as well, because
Hmm.
I think it is recognizing, and I hope for you too to see this 100th episode. Like, I love just saying that. Doesn't it just feel good saying that
Yeah,
100th
it
episode?
feels good. And to celebrate that we made it here, to
Totally.
celebrate, even if it's been 7 years,
Yeah.
yay to 7 years, yay to the 100th episode, yay to continuing the journey. It's really celebrate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Hen.
Well, thank you and congratulations once again. This has been
Thanks.
what a thrill. I wish we could just do this all the time. This is kind of fun.
I know, right? Maybe so maybe this could be a thing, like on my 200th episode, you'll be a guest. And then on my 300th episode, you'll be a guest. On my 400th episode, you'll be a guest.
Love it. I'm in.
Okay. Awesome. All right, love. Well, I'll see you in a minute.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we got to walk the dog and go
We
pick
got to
up
walk the
dinner.
dog
So,
and pick up
mwah.
groceries. So thank you
Congratulations.
again. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone
I
for
love you much.
listening.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your support. I appreciate your reviews and your ratings. And those of you who've reached out to me directly just to tell me how much this episode, not this episode, but this podcast in general has helped you and how much you're enjoying it. I'm so grateful every time I get a note from you. It goes again, it goes in my little testimonial folder that isn't for anyone other than me. It just makes me feel really great to know how this is impacting you and your business, because I also know that if it impacts you and your business, then it's also impacting so many other people because your business is helping others as well. So thank you for doing what you do. Here's to another 100 episodes, honey.
Woo.
Yeah. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that and took away some golden nuggets. Maybe you could relate to a lot of what was said. And look, if you are a woman who is looking for support with your journey, please check out the description below this video because I have a bunch of free resources for you. And if you're interested in working with me, please reach out, book a call. We'll talk about your dreams. We'll talk about where you want to take your life and how to get you there. All right, please don't forget to subscribe and share this video with someone else who could really benefit from it. All right, ciao for now. I'll see you next time.